are. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this training today. I'm Hannah Hickam, the Executive Assistant, and I'll be your host for today. We always open up our trainings with a Q&A session. So if you have a question, then we will have some answers, and you can go ahead and chat those in. Here is how you can either raise your hand or you can chat. Give me just a moment to pull that guy up. There we go. So the participant box over here is what is circled in red, and then you can raise your hand with these three dots in the participant box, but also the chat function is right here. So you can click that as well to ask a question, and we will have somebody answer those. And we already have our first question. That might be more suited for Greg though, so I'm gonna wait till he gets on. Yeah, okay, thanks, Jane.
I can answer that e-form chat question.
Great, go ahead, Jane, thank you.
Right, so e-forms has been up and down for the last week, and it's affecting staff as well as external users. And at this point, I don't have an explanation for why, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't understand it. But I mean, we're on it every time it goes down. People stop what they're doing and attend to it to bring it back up. I will continue to ask our technical staff if they can come up with something to make it more stable. Poor old e-forms never had to do all this new stuff, this much new stuff, but yeah, we are aware, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Like I said, it's as much of a challenge for us as it is for you guys. So that's all I have. Sorry. I know that's pretty inadequate, but that's the situation. Oh, there's Greg.
All right, let me just make him a host real quick. All right, Greg, you can unmute yourself, and I believe that first question is for you.
Good morning, folks. My apologies for coming in a little bit late. So the question is, what is the area affected for the required location and flow line map for the Form 2A? Does this include all proposed locations within the oil and gas development plan? If there is more than one, and the minerals that will be developed by the oil and gas development plan? So yes, we would like to see all that. The boundaries of the mineral acreage to be developed may not be well aligned with the somewhat more relevant surface areas of disturbance. So it may take two maps to fulfill the requirement. One may show the oil and gas development plan area, and then one may show the area where all the surface development is occurring. I believe that there are some of those requirements look out from the like the access road and 1,000 feet away from the access road. And so we would need to see all of those areas. And we're actually, for our guidance, we are preparing a mock-up map that would show how that would work for to include the areas beyond the access road and pipeline disturbances.
Thank you, Greg. I'm not sure who that next question is for. Someone will just have to jump in.
I've got that one.
Great.
What are they going to do? Who's they? With the support for Internet Explorer 11 going away in August 2021, which also means Silverlight will be going away, and how are eForms going to work? Aha! I wonder how they're going to do that. So, before SB 19181 and the subsequent rulemaking that's required us to change all of our forms to accommodate all those new requirements, we were engaged in a huge project to replace Silverlight. And of course, we had to stop and change all our forms for the mission change rulemaking. So between now and August, we will be switching from the Silverlight to a web form interface for all of you and all of us. And actually, staff is currently processing lots of forms on that new web form platform, but we haven't released it to the outside because we didn't have all the forms done yet. We were so close to finishing that project before we had to just flip over to take care of accommodating all of our new rules. So what we've been doing is obviously releasing the revisions to forms for the new rules in our old eForms using Silverlight, using Internet Explorer 11, just to kind of do one step at a time. But clearly between now and August, we will have to release the new web form system. Did that make sense? I hope that answered your question.
It made sense to me, if that matters.
Thanks,
So,
Hannah.
They said it did, so vindication. Okay, it looks like that's it for the questions this morning, but definitely feel free to chat your questions in while the presentations are going on. That way you don't forget them. And just give me a moment to make the transition. Next up, we have Mike Rigby with Form 5 revisions that I have queued up right here. All right, and let's just check your sound real quick, Mike, and then I'll let you take it away.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Rigby. I work in the permitting department. And I'm just going to be going over pretty quickly some of the Form 5 revisions related to the wellbore integrity and mission change rules recently. And as well, I will be giving you a little update on the status of the guidance documents related to the Form 5. So next slide, Hannah. So Rule 414 is the Form 5 rule. This was previously 308A, and it's been revised to clarify and add the following. A cement job summary is required for all casing strings and will include a daily summary and cement verification reports from the cementing contractor. This is really just a clarification, not a big change. And then the Brayton head action threshold has been added and is calculated at 30% of the true vertical depth of the surface casing shoe. And in addition to the Rule 414, there are some other rules that impact the Form 5. So drilling fluids are now required on the Form 5, including total fluids, fresh water, recycled or reused fluids, and this is Rule 431B. Casing grade is now required for all casing strings. The directional drilling rule, which is Rule 410, previously 321, has been altered to now require an inclination survey for all newly drilled non-deviated wellbores and for the re-entry, recompletion, or deepening of an existing wellbore. In addition, since the Form 5 requirements have changed when the wellbore integrity rules became effective in early November, if we return the forms to draft, they will convert to the new version of the Form 5. So because of that, staff will contact the operator to discuss the necessity of returning any forms to draft that were submitted prior to early November. You can go to the next slide, Hannah. So I'm just going to quickly walk through the actual form revisions by tab now. So on the well information tab, similar to some other forms, we removed the instrument operator's name. Not a huge change. Next slide. On the drilling tab, below the list of logs run, there are now 3 new questions, and these are all required, and they include total fluids, freshwater, and recycled or reused fluids in drilling operations. And these data fields include fluids used in drilling and cementing operations, so drilling muds or fluids used while cementing casing, etc. All right, next slide. The casing tab has a few different revisions. A new column has been added, and that's called grade. The order of top and bottom of cement columns have been switched to match just all the other forms. And casing annulus auto-calculated and populated data field has been added. It is based on the size of hole and the size of casing. When the casing line is selected, the auto-calculated annulus will display below. Next slide. Some additional casing tab revisions. The automatically calculated Braden head pressure action threshold has been added. You can see Rule 414B2G for information on that. A casing centralization question has been added. You can see Rule 408G for additional information on casing centralization. If you answer no to the question on casing centralization, you need to provide detail below, and that's why an additional comment box has been added. All right, next slide. We added inclination survey as an option for an attachment. So when required, you can submit a PDF of the inclination survey on the Form 5. Next slide. The submit tab, and this is a revision that's been done to other forms as well. A statement has been added certifying that all statements in the form are, to the best of the operator's knowledge, true, correct, and complete. And a checkbox has been added that when checked, it will auto-populate the submitter's name and email from the contact information that you put in the well information tab. So it's just kind of a little shortcut. And I guess next slide. And I think that's actually, yeah, so that's all the revisions to the form. I guess an update for the guidance. I think the main guidance that many of you are familiar with is the Form 5 instruction slides. And we are almost done with having that fully updated and having a new version released. And the goal is to have it out by the end of this week. So you'll have an updated version of that. In addition, like other forms, we have put together a Form 5 checklist, which the goal is to get that document out also by the end of the week. So hopefully by the end of the week, you'll have 2 comprehensive Form 5 documents with instructions and everything you want to know. And when you do get to see those documents, you'll notice that several additional guidances and policies are referenced within them, and maybe up to about 10. And we are working on those currently. Many are getting close to finished. And, you know, like all of our guidances will be, as we complete them and they get finalized and go through peer review and everything, we'll be able to release those. So hopefully the remainder of the referenced documents will be out, you know, timely. And I suppose the final thing is if you have any Form 5 questions about the new form or edits or the rules, or if there's issues in e-forms with the Form 5, like errors, I'm your contact. So you can email me and I will get back to you as quick as I can and try to resolve your problem. And I think with that, that's about all I had. So thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Mike. It looks like we have just 2 questions that have come in. Jean, did you want to answer those, or do you want to hand those to Mike to answer? Your face says you want Mike.
These are more engineering related questions.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know if an engineer can.
Yeah, Yeah, we need an engineer to jump in and help us with these.
Great. I'm going to put Craig Berger on the spot because we're best friends. And I don't see any other engineers on here, although I can scoop through. Craig, if you think somebody else is better suited to answer it, just give me a holler and I will find them and make them available. Let's see. Dave, I just made you a co-host if you want to jump in and answer those questions, or we can just wait to the end too. That would be okay as well.
Thank you, Hannah. I am just looking through those questions right now. So if we are prepared to go on to another presentation, why don't we do that right now and then jump back?
Sure, we can do that. Next up is Missy Mason, I believe. Yes, with Form 10. So give me just a moment to, oh, that's how you do it. Okay, cool. There we go. All right, Missy, let's just check your sound real quick and then I'll let you take it away.
Can you hear me okay?
I can, very well. Go ahead.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Misty Mason, and I'm a permit completion specialist in the permitting group. And today I'm going to talk to you about the Form 10 revisions. Next slide, Hannah, please. One of the major changes in the Form 10 is actually removal of the change of operator. You'll want to only use the 10 for reporting of date of first sales and change of transporter or gather. The, sorry, I lost my spot. Yeah, so change of transporter gather, date of first production, or sorry, date of first sales. Date of first production is no longer required on the Form 10. Next slide, please, Hannah. The first tab that's on the Form 10 now is very simplified. It just has a purpose dropdown. You'll want to select yes or no. If it's a new well certificate of clearance, you'll want to select yes, and the system will auto-populate no next to the add, change, transport, or gather. If the form purpose is for add or change of transport or gather, the effective date of add change is actually required, and that date only pertains to a change of transport or gather. You will not need to fill that in for a new well certificate of clearance. And also any change that is being made to a transporter or gather, that is required to be reported or filed within 30 days of that change. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please, Hannah. There's 2 ways to enter the wells in the Form 10 if you're familiar with it. There's the typical data entry grid that you guys have probably are familiar with. There's also a template way to enter in the information. And the template has changed just a little bit. We've removed the date of first production And I just wanted to make sure that if you're using this, that you're not entering any information into the gray boxes. It's just going to be the information in those blue fields. Also, if you have multiple transporter gatherers that are responsible for production from one well, you'll want to list them, basically duplicate the information with the exception of that transporter gatherer number, similar to that picture that you see on there. And then this is kind of similar with a lot of our templates. Once you've filled out that information, make sure that you close the document before you hit the import button. Otherwise, you'll get an error. And next slide, please, Hannah. There are no required attachments for a Form 10. If for some reason a member of COGCC asks for an attachment to be put on a Form 10, we have a description for it called Other, and all other form names have been removed, or document names have been removed from the list. So you'll just see Other. So make sure you use that Other if you're uploading a document. But like I said, there are no required documents for the Form 10. You do not want to upload the template or anything for the well information that you've entered. The system will actually pull that information and create its own document, and it will be called well data. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen there, the system has imported it, called it well data. It will show your name of your document, but the system will change that to a number once the form has been submitted. And next slide, please, Hannah. I think that one more. This is very similar to what it was before. The nice thing about this is we have a checkbox to, if the information that you've entered on the first tab is the same, so you're the submitter and the contact for the form, you can hit that checkbox and it'll fill in the information for the name and the email. You will need to put in your title since that information isn't represented on the first tab. So make sure you fill that out. All three of those fields are required. If there's a reason that you're submitting a secondary Form 10, so for example, if the date of first sales that you had submitted previously is incorrect and you're submitting a new Form 10 to correct that information, if you wouldn't mind, we would love to have a comment in the operator comments about why the form is being submitted. Basically say, this form is to correct document number XYZ, and that will be enough to let us know what is going on, and we won't wonder why there's two Form 10 certification of clearance being submitted. And otherwise, this form is optional. And next slide, please, Hannah. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks.
Great job, Misty. Thank you. Let's just continue the trend of answering questions at the end and go to Connor Pasica, who's next. Connor, will you check your sound while I make that transition?
Mic check.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
You have a little bit of feedback in the background. If there's something you think you might be able to do about that, like a sound.
I can turn my own headphones down. I don't know.
That makes it worse.
Made it worse?
Yeah, it's like louder. It's like,
I don't know. Uh-oh.
you hear it now? Do you have another microphone or another headset?
I could go look for one.
Does the headset or does the microphone on your computer work? Oh, go ahead, Jane.
I think we can hear him. Connor, if you just speak up, we'll be able to hear you.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Connor.
All right. Then go ahead and take it away. Sorry about that, folks.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, so I'm covering the Form 42, which is part of the Rule 405, so Field Operations Notice. Oh, I didn't delete the organization presenting to. Well, that's super unprofessional looking. Sorry, folks. Good morning, part of operator training today. On to the next slide. We'll forget this ever happened. So Form 42 will cover its purpose, how it's been reshuffled, what got removed, what got added, including the longer than a day notice, what else was tweaked, and then we'll conclude and go over any questions you folks have. Next slide. So the Form 42 provides notice to the director shortly before an activity occurs so that the commission staff may determine whether oversight by field inspection personnel or other steps are necessary, which in short lets field staff know what's going on in their area so they can decide to witness an activity or not. As a secondary purpose, it gives notice to other agencies and LGDs. So we have an automatic emailing process set up so we can just check various agencies and LGDs. So it'll also send these notices out to them. So you guys don't have to worry about sending a lot of these notices out to, I don't know, CDPHE, Division of Water, other LGDs. So it's kind of a nice all-in-one stop. Next slide. So the rule rewrite moved stuff around. We moved it from 316C to 405. So a lot of stuff got moved to the 400 series because the 400 series is a consolidation of the operating and reporting standards, which, well, the Form 42 is reporting of operations. So conveniently, it's a little bit of both. So also, we reordered the types of notice to better fit the sequence of operations. So before it just kind of was all over the place as far as what the rule order was. Now the rules are sort of, we kind of roughly put it in order of what the lifespan of the well should look like. So the first one is seismic. The example I give is hydraulic fracturing used to be 316CA, but you usually don't start with hydraulic fracturing. So that got moved to 405K. So just now you can sort of read through it and it should roughly cover the lifespan of a well in order. Next slide. We did remove some notifications from it. So firstly, the Bradenhead test. Since we have annual testing statewide now, you don't really want to do thousands of annual notices each year. Also, we don't want to receive thousands of annual notices each year. So it's a little bit of a boon for the both of us. The site ready for reclamation inspection has been removed from that. You guys should really use the Form 4 sundry notice for that now. That is an option there, more detailed, more information there. So please do that instead. The notice of inspection corrective actions performed was removed. Please use the field inspection report resolution form, the FIRR instead. Next slide. We added some notifications. So the notice of intent to conduct seismic operations. We do have the Form 20, but this is more the immediate notification of when those seismic operations are going down. This also allows the LGDs to know when they're going on in their area. We have the notice of move in rig up, which is for both drilling or workover rigs. So that'll let everyone in the area know when either you're going to start drilling or when perhaps a workover rig is moving in for work purposes. notice of remedial cementing operations, and notice of well liquids unloading. Next slide. So some broad changes to notifications. We did a lot of minor changes, like just some wording tweaks here and there, which I'm not going to cover here because I'm sure you guys don't want to go to sleep at 9:30 in the morning. So a lot of them got this duration longer than a day question added to it. So you'll see it on a lot of our various operations. It'll ask you, is this duration anticipated to last longer than, I can't remember if it asks a day or 24 hours, but either way, it's a useful tool for local governments to respond to resident inquiries. So if you're going out there to do something, it doesn't last more than a day, it's probably not going to be a big deal to residents. But if you're going out there and doing something and there's going to be a rig up or tools or something out there for more than a day, it's probably useful for the LGD to know what's going on so they can respond to resident inquiries. It does ask you how long you anticipate to be out there. We're not looking for an exact time frame. It can be a range rather than exact duration. The example I saw given in the deliberation was 48 to 72 hours. So it doesn't have to be an exact, like, we're going to hold your feet to the fire, tell us down to the hour. We did change a lot of the notification requirements from a 48-hour notice to a 2 business day notice. That's not on all notifications, so just check to see which ones were changed. So a lot of these are notices to other stakeholders. So APCD, LGDs, DWR, on and on. This is done automatically on our end, so you don't have to do anything, but just letting you guys know that some of these will be going to other people depending on what is set up in the rules, that sort of thing. So next slide. Any questions?
All right, I think we're gonna just keep up the trend of taking the questions at the end since there's a lot of them right now and I'm not really sure which questions go to who. So moving on, next up we've got Craig Berger with the head monitoring and testing guidance. Craig, can you go ahead and check your mic real quick and I'll get you queued up. You're still muted. I think you can hit Alt-A maybe. No, that's not it. Or do you want me to? I can ask it to unmute you. Maybe I didn't make you a
Okay, Hannah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good.
Okay, sound check.
Yes, you sound great. Go ahead and then tell me when to scroll and I will scroll.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you want to zoom in a little bit on that. It's not filling much of the screen there. Okay.
Let me know when it's good. Do you want more?
Sure. Maybe one more.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm Craig Berger, Western Area Engineering Supervisor out in the rifle office when it was open for business. So yeah, just going to go over our Bradenhead guidance document that was a little tardy. We probably should have put this out when the wellbore integrity rules went active on November 2nd, but we did get it out. So we're going to go over it a little bit here. Section, and this is available on our guidance web page, obviously, but not under mission change rules because this is a wellbore integrity rule. So there was a little confusion about that. So section 1, we just, have rule citations. So when you look at this document, the first 5 pages are actually just the rules and that are related to Bradenhead testing. So Hannah, maybe you can scroll down to page 5. Because I'm not going to read the rules to everybody. Okay, here we are on page 5. Let me see what we got going here. So we have the related rules as well, just so you don't have to look in more than one place. And there are some questions about braidhead test areas. Where can we find out? You know, if you're not in a braidhead test area, you may not know about it. If you are, hopefully you know about it. Those are the DJ Basin braidhead test area, the Mam Creek, Rulison Field braidhead test area, and the Ignacio Blanco Field down by Durango and La Plata County. And those commission order numbers are at the end of the document, and you can look those up as commission orders. So I just wanted to point that out. You're going to scroll down to look at Rule 420 there. We have made some changes to the Form 17, mostly in the instructions, because some of the techniques and instructions have changed slightly. And we've also allowed this wellbore diagram to be an attachment, because the rule does say operator will include a wellbore diagram if not previously submitted or if the configuration has changed. So you can attach your new wellbore diagram on your Form 17 now, if you would like. Let's see, let's go on down to, I'd kind of like to skip the purpose. I think the purpose is pretty obvious. We're trying to make some clarifications. And then we get kind of into the meat of the thing with our guidance. Obviously 3.1 is important. The operator is required to provide braidhead access on all wells. And we do know, and we are dealing with the fact that some of these wells do not have access, and some actually cannot be equipped due to the wellbore configuration. So that if you have a wellbore that cannot be configured with a braidhead access, contact your area engineer or engineering supervisor. Let's see, let's go on down to the next page. And Mike mentioned this a little bit, that it's being calculated on your Form 5 now. But for existing wells, you know, the operator is sort of responsible to make this calculation themselves if they get a braidhead pressure reading. And hopefully this is fairly straightforward. Just take your surface casing depth, multiply it by 0.3, and that is a number in PSIG that we do not want the braidhead to exceed. Let's see, monthly monitoring. This is just where you go out, you check the pressure on it, confirm that it's below your threshold once a month. Fairly straightforward, although as we've had some operators point out, it's not that easy on some wells, especially in the winter and things like that. But if you have questions about that, you can contact engineering staff. And now you're just going to keep that data. You don't need to report it to us, although there may come a time where we would audit that, but I don't see that coming with our workload anytime soon. Let's go on down to page 8. So we've created this flow chart to hopefully clarify things for people who like flow charts. So please take a look at this flow chart. Kind of gives you the requirements for what you're going to need to do. If you, on the left is obviously if you're below the threshold, you don't really need to do anything except keep your data. On the right is if you do get a braidhead pressure above the threshold, which is the 30% of the surface casing depth, or a lower number in the areas that have braidhead test area designations. So we expect you to perform a braidhead test at that point, submit the data on the Form 17, and then mitigate the braidhead pressure. And it does say immediately, you know, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, or if you have some questions about how you're going to do that, feel free to call your area engineer and discuss it with them. Get a kind of concurrence that that's an appropriate method. And then after that, we do expect this diagnostic testing to be performed, which is basically a determination if this is a sustained pressure that's being sourced from below somewhere underneath the earth, or there's also possibilities that there's a temperature effect in a confined space, or sometimes there's wellhead leaks, which you just need to repair your wellhead. And so we're going to give you 60 days per rule to do that diagnostic testing. And there has been questions about, you know, what is this diagnostic testing and do you have requirements for it? And at this point we don't, and I don't think we're going to put out requirements for diagnostic testing because there's many different ways it can be done. And we don't want to stifle, sorry about the dog. We don't want to stifle innovation if somebody comes out with some innovative way to perform diagnostic testing on a braid head pressure. All right, let's see, why don't we go down to 3.3 real quick here. I think we've covered most of that. Timing, so the rule does require a braid head test every 12 months, which is different than monitoring because in the test, you're actually going to open the braid head annulus and observe any kind of flow characteristics. Because even on low pressures that would be below your threshold, they may flow liquids, they may flow a little bit of gas, that kind of thing. Now to report these Form 17s, go on down a little bit to 3.4 there, Hannah. And we do know that we have multiple 3.4s in this document, so we already need to revise this document, which some of the other revisions that are going to occur, I'll discuss in a second here. So we do expect a Form 17 once per year for each well in the state, or that the results are uploaded in a bulk upload. And that's a method that is approved by the director. At this point, the only bulk upload we have approved is by this company, Rockfoot LLC Data Monster. And so you can email them and look at their webpage if you're interested in a bulk upload, which filling out the Form 17 does take some time. So you may want to consider the bulk upload option. Let's see, the next section, 3.4, just references where the actual test procedures and there's a lot of detail in that document, which I don't want to go into here. Now, there's been some questions about the next section, 3.4. We were too busy looking at the content and didn't look at the formatting. Maybe we should have sent it to Hannah for a read. We are going to provide some more detail in our revision of this document regarding pressure management plans and what we would require and expect for these plans. The big picture, you know, sometimes there's a bleed off strategy, which involves, you know, releasing pressure once a month or when thresholds are met. Those do need to comply with CDPHE regulations if there is gas coming from the annulus. There are pressure abatement systems that are being used and have been used in the past, either combusting the braid head gas, directing it to a sales line. If you have a low pressure sales line, that would be below what your action threshold is. And of course, we're always willing to consider any other innovative solution that somebody comes up with regarding this pressure abatement rather than venting it to the atmosphere. If you want to go down to page 10, Hannah. And then of course, if you have a serious situation with your braid head, you're probably going to need to reduce it with a downhole intervention, cement squeeze, other isolation technology. And there has been a lot of cases where you just need to plug the well because those downhole isolation techniques don't always work. Let's see, now I just want to point out the last sentence here in this last section 3.4 is venting from the braid head is not permitted anymore other than venting while the valve is open during a braid head test or during diagnostic testing. And that's a pretty dramatic change, as in the past, some of the remediation strategies have been just to let the braid head vent small amounts of gas. But that is no longer allowed. Let's see, go down to, okay, 3.5 is monitoring during hydraulic fracturing. Now this has been performed in the DJ Basin for quite a while and through conditions of approval on permits. So this probably isn't a change for DJ Basin operators, and we've been doing it a little bit in the Piceance, which is where both of the drilling operations are focused at this time. So, but this is statewide. So if somebody does drill a well down in La Plata or a wildcat well out somewhere, we will need to have them monitor these offset wells. And just to clarify, when it says here, operator will also monitor braiding head pressures in all wells within 300 feet in 3 dimensions of the wellbore being treated. So that's pretty much any wellbore within 300 feet. Just keep your eye on that braiding head. And then this goes into some of the these 1, 2, 3, 4. We're trying to clarify, and we're going to revise this slightly to clarify it even more. But basically, if you see any indication of communication, whether it's a pressure above the threshold, some kind of increase in the braiding head pressure, of course, if you see fluids coming to the surface, you're going to have to stop your hydraulic fracturing operation and figure out what is going on prior to continuing. So there's some methods there, or some steps there to be taken if that were to happen. So let's see, Hannah, if you want to go down to the next flow chart. We have created this flow chart, which hopefully will give a little more clarity. And you can just follow the steps. So it's kind of the same thing as if you had a braiding head pressure on any well. You're going to, make some notifications, figure out what's going on, perform some diagnostic testing. And then you've got some time frames at the bottom there, 15 days to submit a Form 4, basically with your evaluation of what happened, why, and what you did to correct the situation, if it was a serious situation, or if it was not, why it wasn't. Let's see. Then if we go down to what in this document is section 5, but will be section 4 in the revised document because we didn't pay attention to our number. I apologize. This just talks about the DJ Basin braiding head monitoring area, and that's Commission Order 1232. That's been in effect for, well, 2 years now. Wow. So that basically covers the DJ Basin counties that are active for drilling. And basically the thresholds are more stringent in the DJ Basin area than the 0.3 times the surface casing depth. So let's see, let's go on down. There's some clarification there. DJ Basin operators, if you have any questions about that, which I hope you don't because you've been doing it for 2 years now, call Diana Burns or Diane McCoy. Then we have a brief section down here, which is 5.2 in this document. Describes the Ignacio Blanco field, which has one of the oldest braiding head test areas we know about, back in the early 1990. So there's some lower thresholds there, and there's a lot of history to that. If you want to know about that, I don't know, I guess you have to have me do another presentation, because Hannah, if you scroll down, and this is the critical area map for Ignacio Blanco field, and this is actually a BLM document, but we've been doing this in conjunction with them since the 90s. So you can see that what they determine are critical areas where the braiding head threshold pressure is 5 psi, is probably a good half of the field down there. So now outside the 5 psi, the threshold is 25 psi, which is quite a bit lower than most of the other thresholds. So if you have questions about that, give myself or our Southwest engineer, Alicia Duran, a call. Let's scroll on down to Buzzard, Mam, and Rulison. In this field, this commission order came out, I'm not sure of the date, but it was there's 4 different numbers here, and that's just because we issue orders by field. So there are 4 different fields. We only have 3 in the title. We'll think about that. Anyway, the threshold will remain at 150 there, which has been the threshold since, for at least a decade, and has worked very well. So if you want to scroll down, we just have some related documents here. And that's pretty much the meat of it. Obviously, I went through that fairly quick, I hope. But engineering staff, we will revise this guidance to include a definition of sustained casing pressure and the requirements that we'll have for pressure management plans, because you know, we don't really have a definition of sustained casing pressure yet, but it's probably going to be if a pressure is sustained for the 60-day diagnostic period that you're allowed before you submit your Form 4 sundry notice. So let's, I guess I'll wrap it up and we can move on to the questions.
Thanks, Greg. Great job. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. So we'll go back to the beginning, and I believe, let's see, we did the first one, the second one. I think we answered the IE11 question, right, Jane? Okay.
Yep.
So the next question, and I think, Dave, this might be for you. Specifically, what types of fluids do you expect to be included in total fluids?
Thank you, Hannah. Total fluids would include all fluids in the well, and that does include drilling mud, which I think answers another question further down.
Oh, great. And then the next question is, what if the last centralizer is not located at TD per rule?
So the intent of the rule is to have the casing centralizer for the bottom of the well as close to the shoe as possible. So the joint above the shoe would be acceptable. And we'll have a guidance, at least statement put out to that effect.
Okay, thanks, Dave. The next one is there a shortcut to all of these new guidance sheets, or still have to click on all the tabs? I think the tabs, but let me pull up the website and we'll just take a look. Sorry, Zoom came down. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's right here. So yeah, you'll have to go to the tabs. So regulations, a good one to start with, and then operator guidance. And then here's the Braden Head one right here. But everything else is going to be here. I would just bookmark that, I think, because you're going to be referencing this quite a bit, I believe. And here's how to ask the question. Here's how to view the answer. And I hope that that answered that question. So no, there's not a shortcut, but you can create a shortcut, and this is it right
Well, and the thing to remember is that, you know, we have different types of guidance documents. We have form instructions, and those are on the forms pages on the respective form. We have guidance documents that are kind of explanations of how to take what's in the rule and turn it into operations and reporting. So we will continue with that organization that we've had for several years now. So yes, people will have to navigate around the website to find all the information.
Thanks, Jane. Next question is, can you please give an explanation of reentry and recomplete?
So I can answer that real quickly. Re-entry means you're going back to a well that has been plugged and abandoned, and you're going to drill out those plugs and try to reestablish production from that well. Recompletion is work done in an existing well that's could be producing or TA'd or shut in, but the well has not been plugged, and you're going to go in and complete in a different formation. That's what a recomplete is.
Thank you, Jane. The next question about fluids, I believe Dave answered that. Yes, the mud is a fluid, and is that, hopefully that's right, he's not shaking his head. And then the next question, Form 10 required for each well within 30 days of approval of Form 9, question mark.
Yes, after we approve a Form 9 for change of operator, the new operator who's just acquired some new wells needs to file a Form 10 to designate their transporter and gatherer for the wells they've just acquired.
Thank you, Jane. Next question. I've been asked by an inspector to let him know when I file notice of spud because he does not get notified. Do I need to keep doing this?
This is Mike Leonard. No. And if you would please reach out to either Connor or myself and let us know who that inspector is, and we need to see why they're not getting notice, because that notice should automatically go to them through our database.
Okay, and I just posted Mike's email for you there, but now I've got to scroll back up to find the question, so sorry about that. Okay, next question, thank you, Mike, is clarification of previous question on centralizers. Rule requires a casting shoe, at casting shoe. Oh, I think that was this Form 10, so you answered that one. Next one is clarification I received on MIRU on 42. If multiple rigs are going to the same location, a 42 needs to be filled for each rig, filed for each rig. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The idea behind this rule is, as we went through rulemaking, was to give local governments and surrounding neighbors and everybody else an idea that equipment was going to be there, rigs were going to be in the air. So yes, if there's 2 rigs there, then we would need 2 separate move-in rig up notices.
Thanks, Mike. And next question is, where can the 209C Bradenhead test area that Mike Rigby, I believe, mentioned can be found and read? The
And
209C.
this is Dave. I'll take that one.
Great, thank you.
So that Craig kind of reviewed that during his presentation. Towards the bottom of the Bradenhead guidance document, there's references to the monitoring areas or testing areas in DJ, Piance Basin, and San Juan Basin. There was another question that is a little bit further down, asking where an operator can see the Bradenhead testing area portion in Mesa County. And we actually have a layer on our GIS map. It is under COGCC as the main heading. And then there's a checkbox for rules. And if you expand on that, we have a set of layers for Piance NTO areas.
All right, thanks, Dave. MIRU needed for new completions installing tubing?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Next question is, unlike drilling rig notifications, the dates for workover rigs are very fluid. Depending on the actual duration of the work, the rig may move prior or post the original date provided via the Form 42, i.e. a job may be scheduled for 3 days, but may only take 1 day, shifting all other rig notification dates up 2 days, or a job may take 10 days versus 3 days, thus moving the dates back several days. What are the expectations for updates and how would that be done?
So our expectations would be as soon as possible, as soon as you know. And there is a checkbox, if I'm not mistaken, on the Form 42 that says update previous forms. And just do it that way. We do understand, and if you look through the rule, we also understand that there are unplanned events that you may not be able to give 2 days notice. But we do want notice within a day of that.
Thank you, Mike. Next question. If 30% TVD calculation for Bradenhead PSI is over 50 PSI, should 50 PSI still be the pressure action threshold? 3.2 in parentheses.
Hannah, I'll take that one too.
Okay.
If that is the requirement of the specific Bradenhead test area or monitoring area, then the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. And next question is it acceptable to place a 1 inch by 20 foot piece of pipe inside the 12 1/4 inch by 8 1/4 inch annulus void space in parentheses to allow monitoring the surface casing pressure in order to be compliant with COGCC's Bradenhead regulations, Rule 341? And then there's more to that question. Additionally, the void would be filled with cement to hold the 1 inch pipe in place. The estimated volume of cement is plus or minus 1 BBL. Would a sundry notice need to be submitted to conduct this procedure?
So Dave, again, I would say start by talking with your area engineer, and that'll probably get bumped up to the supervisor. We may need to discuss with our field inspectors as well.
Thank you, Dave. Next question is, how do we determine if our wells are in the Bradenhead test areas with special requirements in Mesa County?
So Hannah, I answered that one, but now that I'm looking at the map, it appears that township, let's see, 9 South 93 West and 9 South 92 West are not shown in that map layer, so we may need to make an adjustment there.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And is there guidance on the CBM wells with the 2 annual test of 0 and then submit the documentation of the well bore? I didn't quite understand. Do you want me to read that one again? I didn't quite get that one.
I heard it okay. Craig Berger, can you jump in on this one?
Oh, do you want me to ask to unmute? I thought I made you a guy, but maybe I missed you.
Yeah, okay, I think I'm back on. Sorry, I muted myself and it locked me again.
Oh,
Okay, I see.
there you go.
Okay, coal bed methane wells. No, we don't have any guidance on that. And historically, that rule has been in place for quite a while. And you're going to submit a sundry, stating we would like to be excluded from Bradenhead monitoring. Our area engineer will review that and say, yes, you've got your 2 Bradenhead tests and your isolation is adequate. So you're off the hook. And hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Craig. If that didn't answer the question, just type again and we will re-answer that one. Next question is, could we get better clarification on the mud for drilling fluids, please? Mud is circulated, so it's constantly moving in and out of the hole. How does this need to be reported?
Dave again, and I'm not sure if Greg wants to jump in at all, but the intention is to essentially have a total of all fluids that are expected to be on location. So in other words, if you are hauling in mud, you will have a volume on the amount that you hauled in. If you are, mixing on site, you're going to have a volume of the water that is brought in to perform the drilling. So, I mean, essentially, it's a total volume that we're looking for that particular rule.
Thank you, Dave. And Craig, I think you answered this one, but I'm just going to read it anyway. Do we need to do the monthly monitoring on CBM wells?
The answer to that is yes, unless you have the exclusion.
There you go. Okay, thank you. And let's see, the next one is, right now for flow lines, the post-abandonment form 42/44 is automatically sent to the LGD, but not the pre-abandonment 42/44. Would it be possible to make the pre-abandonment, the pre-AB, also an auto notification to the LGD?
Dave again, I think we would have to probably look back through the statement of basis and purpose. I'm sure, from an IT perspective, it would probably be an easy fix. Jane or Greg, would you like to weigh in?
The notifications to local governments and LGDs was deliberated in the rulemaking. And so we're doing what the commission adopted in regard to other agencies, other entities that get a copy of a Form 42. So that would actually require a rulemaking.
Ooh. All right, thanks, Jane. Next question. For the updated guidance on Order 1-232, Fox Hill wells require action threshold of 0 PSI. Does this threshold apply to monthly Braden head pressure readings?
I would ask either Diana or Diane to jump in on this one.
All right, give me one moment to find them. And Diane McCoy, you came up first, so I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself first. And if I can find Diana, I do not see Diana Byrne. So she might be logged in under a name that I just don't recognize. But Diane McCoy, you can unmute yourself and speak if you have anything to say. And Diana, if you will reach out to me, Messenger would work, or you can chat, then I will find you, but I don't see you under your name, Diana or Byrne, right now.
Yeah, I'll just chime in here. If you know you have an aquifer uncovered from the surface casing, then your action threshold would be the 0 PSI. The previous guidance document said, if you had an uncovered one, that the area engineer or director or whatever could ask for additional testing for any pressure below those we're getting reported on the 17, but we just clarified it to make it simple. So if it's anything above that 0, it's not the 50 pressure, not the 50 pounds, it's going to be that 0 since the aquifer is uncovered.
All right, thank you, Diane. If you need more clarification, just put it in the questions and we'll get to it. Next question is, when drilling a new well, is the MIRU form 42 and the notice of spud form 42 submitted at the same time?
This is Mike, I'll take that. Yes, no, maybe. It depends. So if you are moving in with the spud rig and spudding the wells, then yes. And then you're gonna have to do another move-in rig up when you move the big rig. Or if it's gonna take you several days to move in the bigger rig and then spud, it would be 2 separate notices, 2 separate times.
Thank you, Mike. The next question, 3.5 monitoring during hydraulic fracturing treatment. Can you please explain better what is expected under number 3 for indication communication between the well or wells to a Braden head annulus through an increase of pressure? What are expectations on what constitutes an indication of communication? And then how do we use this in conjunction or in place of with the action threshold of 200 PSI or 30%? And then whoever's going to be answering that, let me know if you'd like me to navigate to that in the Braden head document. And let me know if you'd like me to read any of it again.
Dave, do you want me to take that or attempt to take that?
Sure, go ahead, Craig.
Okay. So we've had some discussions about this, and if you do see a Braden head pressure increase of say 50 psi in a well that's 250 feet from where you're stimulating, that's what we're talking about. I mean, you're underneath threshold, but what's the reason that Braden head pressure increased? So at that point, we would expect at least some diagnostics. And if you open that Braden head and frac fluid starts flowing out of it, you have a serious problem. Yeah. So what we expect is you'd look for a reason why that Braden head pressure increases. And there could be different reasons, but if it's because of your hydraulic fracturing, then you need to stop. So.
Okay, thank you, Craig. And the next question is, to confirm, it is a 48-hour notice for the MIRU notice, correct?
No.
Sorry. No.
This, Mike, it is not a 48-hour notice. It's a 2 business day notice. And that was put in place by the commissioners because a lot of local governments do not work on weekends. So it's a 2 business day notice.
Okay, 2 business days. Thank you, Mike. And sorry, our next question. I'm sorry, missed a part of the statement, but to confirm the answer to my previous question regarding less or more than 0 PSI reaction threshold for monthly Braden head readings, this was answered in the affirmative. Is that correct? Sorry, I don't remember, so someone wanted to speak.
Diane, did you hear that?
Yes. And Ryan, yes.
Yes, okay. Wonderful. And next question is, are there any changes or updates to Form 5A reporting?
I'll answer that one. There are changes to the Form 5A reporting timing, and we've received numerous questions on it, and we're working internally to address those questions. And when we get it sorted out, we'll share it with you.
Great, thank you, Jane. Looks like the questions have slowed down. I can show you guys what's up on the next training agenda. Oops, there we go. So far, it's a little slim. We have the wildlife consultation with CPW liaisons. We may or may not add something else, but I'll send out that at some point today, probably around 5. And I'm not seeing any more questions, but I do want to give folks a chance to put them in if they are interested. If anybody has any questions about how to get certain things on the website, I could navigate there. Otherwise, it looks like we're winding this meeting down.
Hannah, I would just remind everybody, I have been paying a little bit of attention to the presentations, and I can't remember if you pointed them to the Ask a Question portal, but you know, we still have the question portal open. It's available 24/7. You know, in the middle of the night when you wake up in a cold sweat and you have the question, you're worried you're not going to remember it, you can log on and ask it right then. Just by going to our SB 19181, you know, green header and then mission change guidance, and then right there at the top, ask a question. You know, punch that button and feel free to ask a question. You can either give us an email so that you can get a direct response to the answer when it's logged, or you can stay anonymous and then, you know, monitor the site. If you go back one, Hannah, the next button, view questions and answers, where we are diligently answering these questions as they come in. You can see there's a significant amount of information out there that is organized by a general index of the type of question, and then the answer. So would encourage you to use that portal as well if you, you know, so you can stay informed and get the information you need.
And can I add just one comment to what Scott just said? So for some of these questions, it actually takes some effort and coordination across multiple groups to come up with a definitive answer. We don't want to just throw an answer out there and then, like if I answer a question and then the engineering group says, no, Jane, you got that all wrong. So we just appreciate your patience in the effort it takes for us to come up with really firm, solid answers that we're not going to have to roll back later. Thanks.
Thanks. And I'd also like to add, you can Control F to get a little find up here, and you can put in like 912, and then it'll show you where all the 912s are in the whole document. And up here, and right here it says 205, so that's how many, there's 5 entries for 912 there. So if you're looking for a specific thing, that's how you can do it with the Control F key.
So a couple of questions that jumped on late. Yes, this was recorded and it will be posted on our operator guidance page where the rest of the information, all the questions have been collected into a document thanks to our staff's diligent attention, and the answers that were provided will also be posted. So all these GChat questions will be captured and answers posted. And we are going to continue this training bi-weekly through the middle of February at this point. So every Tuesday and Thursday through the middle of February is our current plan, and then only weekly after that. So Tuesdays and Thursdays through mid-February, and then probably just Tuesdays beginning the middle of February, you know, until we feel like, you know, there's no longer a need, a weekly need, and then we'll transition back to our monthly operator training meeting. So that's our plan. You know, we'll certainly pay attention to your expressed needs as we go forward, and if we feel like mid-February, if we need to continue the bi-weekly training, we will certainly do that. But that's the current plan, is to have bi-weeklies Tuesday and Thursday through mid-February, and then weekly after that until we feel like we can transition back to our normal monthly operator training format.
All right, thank you for that, Scott. And Jane, I believe you put in there too, so thank you. And yep, it looks like everything is winding down. So thank you so much, folks, for being on. I'll be sending out the invite for Thursday later on today, and I'll go ahead and put those dates in there so for you to save the dates. Anyone who is not on the list who would like to be in it, I'm about to drop my email into the chat function so that you can email me to request to be put on the operator distribution email list. Make sure you get that last name right. It gets misspelled a lot and it won't get to me if you misspell it. So I'll just give a few minutes to folks to grab that if you need.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks again, Hannah, for being such a great host. We appreciate your facilitating this conversation. I know it can be a little chaotic, so thanks. You did a great job.
No, it's super fun. Thank you so much, Scott. I'm really glad to be here and to do it. And so, yeah, everyone can jump off. I'm just going to stay on for a minute longer so that anybody who needs to get my email out of the chat can do so. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a great day and take care.
Bye, everybody.